We look back on bold predictions for the Baltimore Ravens from the 2021 season next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we return here with another episode of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Allstriker of Ravens Wire. Of course, we're here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. And we're back. It's a Thursday episode, and this is going to be a fun one today. It's going to be another one of those OTA sandwiches. We did this last week where the Ravens went through their second open OTA session to the media. So we have takeaways, we have quotes, but in the middle here, in the second part of the show, I do want to take a look back at the 2021 season. And I know it's not the most fun thing to do, but this is going to be fun here today. You have entered into the roast of me here on this show. We're going to be looking back at my 2021 bowl predictions, seeing which ones were right, which ones weren't. Maybe all of them are right. Maybe all of them weren't, but you have to stay tuned to find out. That'll be in the second part of the show. And I've been thinking for a while, when did I want to do this show? And it feels like for some reason now is the perfect time. The topic was calling to me. So you know what? We're doing it here today. But in the first time, we'll be talking a bit about takeaways from people who are at OTAs and what they observed from the second open media session of 2022 OTAs, including who was there, who wasn't, who had good practices, etc. And then in the final part of the show, we'll dive into quotes from players and from coaches that were said after practice. So a jam-packed show and a fun one here today, kind of. Although looking back at the 2021 season isn't, again, the most fun thing to do in the world, we'll make it fun here with these bold predictions, which were, I'll call them bold. You got to stay tuned. But before we dive into the content, be sure if you're here with us in video form on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel here. We're growing really fast on Locked On Ravens. It's been really, really amazing to see. I want to thank everybody who's already subscribed to this channel. We're aiming for 2,000 subscribers next. Hopefully we'll get that before the season starts. That's my goal here, 2,000 before the season. So if you're not subscribed already, why should you subscribe? Well, we put out daily Ravens content 5 days a week. So if you want Ravens news, coverage, analysis, opinions, 5 days a week, we have it here for you. So be sure to subscribe and of course like the video. In audio form as well, though. It's the same show, both audio and video. Be sure to follow us there anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Thank you so much for listening, whether it's on your way to work, on your way from work, or wherever, whenever. Thank you for tuning in. Also, be sure to turn notifications on and follow me on Twitter at KaosStrucker34 and the Locked On Ravens account at Locked On Ravens. So let's talk about some OTAs here. Again, the first part of our OTA sandwich with the bold predictions kind of sandwich in the middle. Some takeaways, some guys who were there. So Josh Rebeck of The Athletic put together a list of people who were not participating in OTAs, and the list did include Lamar Jackson, but you have here Kyle Fuller, Marcus Peters, J.K. Dobbins, Darius Washington, Ricky Person, Gus Edwards. You have Iman Marshall, Tyus Bowser, Michael Pierce, Ben Cleveland, Jawan James, Morgan Moses, Ronnie Stanley, David Ajabo, Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe. So some of those guys that are injured were actually on the field. Marcus Peters came out and he watched most of practice. J.K. Dobbins did some sideline work. If you're following the Ravens on any social media platform, you probably saw the pictures of Marcus Peters out there smiling with Marlon Humphrey and J.K. Dobbins out there too. I mean, it's great just to see those guys back on the field, right? I mean, we haven't seen them on the field playing football in almost a year now. It'll be coming up in almost a year, and we haven't seen them play actual meaningful football, so not preseason football, in over a year, right? That was back in January when the Ravens lost to the Bills in the divisional round in 2021. It's been that long since we've seen J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards or Marcus Peters on the field. Just to see those guys out there smiling was just, even in pictures, is really, really cool to have them. And hopefully, again, they will continue to recover, hopefully be healthy by week 1 when the games actually start to count. So that was really nice to, again, see those pictures. But some of the takeaways, I'm going to actually go to Kyle Barber, who is the managing editor over at Baltimore Beatdown. And we know Baltimore Beatdown guy, Spencer Schultz, friend of the show, Tuesday guest, our Taco Tuesday guy. But Kyle Barber was at OTAs. He put some he pretty much threaded in some takeaways on Twitter, so I'm just going to read them here. He said that Dalen Hayes had a great practice. He saw him break up a couple passes at the line. He blew by some tackles for would-be sacks, which is a great thing because we've talked about the outside linebacker depth and where it is right now, right? So when is David Ojabo going to be back? When is Tyus Bowser going to be back? Those are real questions where you might not see either guy till 2023. In the worst case scenario, maybe Tyus Bowser comes back midway through. Maybe he's ready for week one. It's that uncertain right now. Dalen Hayes is a player who did show flashes. I remember that, what was it, the dip under move in the preseason game against the Saints last year. He showed flashes, but he was injured for the majority of the season and didn't really get to make an impact. And he, I think, came back off of IR 1 week, then had to go back on it the next week. So it wasn't the rookie year that he was anticipating, that anybody was anticipating. So to see him, or at least hear that he had a great day at practice, that is a really good thing to hear, because I think, honestly, he's going to have to step up and be somebody who makes a big impact while people are kind of waiting for Bowser, Ojabo, and some of those other guys. And Justin Houston, while it feels like he likely could be back, that hasn't happened yet. So Hayes might have a big role this season. Kyle also said that Tyler Huntley delivered some crisp passes and connected on a deep shot to Josh and had a touchdown to Rashad Bateman as well. And he did have a few errant passes, but he looked good, and the good passes looked real good. So I guess a mixed bag here when looking at Tyler Huntley. Huntley's a player that is obviously getting the first team reps with Lamar Jackson currently not present at OTAs, the voluntary OTAs at that. But Huntley's a player that will benefit from these first team reps, I think. For as much as everybody does want Lamar Jackson back there and are saying, well, yeah, look, it'd be great if Lamar Jackson was there. Huntley is a player that is getting the benefit of him not being there to get those first team reps going up against that defense. So I think that that's something that I could really benefit him if Lamar Jackson has to miss time again for some reason. Hopefully that's not the case, and Lamar can play a full 17-game season with no issues there. But yeah, good overall. I guess a mixed bag day from Huntley, though. Then you have Patrick Ricard making the flashiest pass of practice, catching the flashiest pass of practice. He spun around, snagged the ball with just his right hand, and it was over his head, and he came down with it, gained a few extra yards in the open field. So again, you're looking at versatility, right? Patrick Ricard, we see him kind of leak out of the backfield on a couple of those plays, and he carries guys with him for 10, 11 yards, picks up first downs. Ricard could be used in a bunch of different roles this year. I think we're going to see a little bit of a different type, not completely different type of offense, but I think we're going to see some things maybe opened up in that vault. At least we can hope for Greg Roman that he opens up that vault a little bit. So I think that it'll be really interesting to see how Ricard is used. But look, if he's making one-handed catches, I mean, again, I don't care how the yards are picked up. As long as they're picked up, if Ricard has a big hand in that, hey, I'm all for that for sure. Then you have Jalen Armour-Davis catching an interception after it deflected off of Benjamin Victor's chest and into the air, then took it back a good 20 yards or so before the play ended. So, yeah, I think, again, the addition of Kyle Fuller is great, but you also have the young depth such as Jalen Armour-Davis, and you have Pepe Williams as well, who is already leaning into the big trust thing. If you've seen on social media, he came out to practice and, said big trust. So he's picking it up. He's picking it up. But I think that when you have a player like Armour-Davis, who is a rookie, he's behind players right now like Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, and honestly, before the season starts, probably Kyle Fuller. This is all good experience for him to have right now. And again, I feel a lot more confident this offseason in the Ravens secondary in terms of their depth and quality depth at that than I did last offseason. So that's always a good start, but I'm glad that Jalen Armour-Davis got an interception on the day here. You also have Patrick Queen delivering a solid blitz rep, and he, along with Dalen Hayes, had a would-be sack or throwaway from the quarterback. Patrick Queen's a player that, a lot of people are expecting a lot of things from him. Obviously, being a first-round pick in 2020, those expectations are very, very high for him. So I think, again, it all starts for him in the preseason, training camp, OTAs, and we did see he had a great preseason in 2021. His 2021 season was up and down, or I'll say down and up, because it started off not so great. I think it ended well. But this is a year where I think he has to be a bit more consistent. And again, it all starts here. It all starts with the reps. So I'm glad to see Patrick Queen getting some love here. And then you also have Kyle talking about Tyler Beatty. He said during sevens, Tyler Beatty caught a nice back corner of the end zone toe tap touchdown. Play lasted a bit longer, but he lost the defender, floated behind, and got both feet in. I'm telling you, Tyler Beatty's my pick for number 3. the number 3 running back on this team. Justice Hill, maybe Justice Hill has a resurgence. Who knows? But I just think Beatty is an electric player. He was a player I thought was going in the 4th round. Baltimore got him in the 6th. He's a player that can catch the ball out of the backfield, runs really hard. His size is very deceptive. He's a smaller back for sure, but I think that he is a compliment to what the Ravens have in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. If either of those guys have to miss time or go on the PUP list as they finish their recoveries up, I feel confident in Beatty being able to run behind this offensive line with his dynamic skill set and make an impact both in the run game and in the pass game. So Kyle, with great updates there from training camp and a lot of good things coming out of OTAs so far. I guess it's not training camp, it's practices, workouts, OTAs. But we're going to head into our first break here on Locked On Ravens. Still a ton to talk about. We're going to dive into my bold predictions for the Baltimore Ravens during the 2021 season. Talk about where I got it right, where I got it wrong, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned. Still a ton to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. First, though, I do want to tell you a bit about Blue Nile. And whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools, let you choose a diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is really one of a kind, and you can look for fine jewelry. But if you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has experts on hand 24/7. You can get them on the phone. You can chat with them to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off of a purchase of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging. It won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. We're back here. Our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you. And again, thank you for making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video in video form, and also be sure to follow us in audio form as well. And be sure to also fill out our survey here. We've put together a really important survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. So it's your opportunity to tell us what you like, what you don't like. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. Let's dive into it. Let's dive into this roast of me here. Bold predictions are things that, again, they're bold for a reason, right? And this was actually, fun fact, the first ever video version of the show I put out. If you want to go back and look at that, the first ever video podcast on YouTube I put out was my bold predictions segment, or I guess full episode that I put out there, and how things have changed from back. It was September 6th. So any audio listeners that want to go back and listen to the audio version, that was September 6th. I put 5 in that video, I believe, and I put 7 on Ravens Wire. We're going to go with the Ravens Wire article because 5 of the 7 were the ones I put in the video version, the podcast, and then the other 2 I just kind of put in the article. So we'll go through them here, and I'll read what I wrote, and we'll talk about them. So the first one was that Lamar Jackson finishes in the top 3 of the MVP race. And this was actually closer to happening at the beginning of the year than people think. I'll read what I wrote. I said Jackson won the second unanimous MVP award in NFL history during his phenomenal 2019 season. He didn't have as good of a year in 2020, but in no way was he bad. Now, entering 2021, Jackson has plenty of things in his favor that could catapult him back into the MVP conversation once again. With an improved wide receiver group, a much better offensive line, and another year of NFL experience under his belt, Jackson is set up to do more great things this season. He's also expected to be in an offense that will be opened up a bit more, which will benefit the quarterback tremendously. With all those things working in his favor, Jackson has the potential to have a special season and put himself right back in the MVP conversation. Jackson had his MVP moment against Indianapolis in Week 5. He had it. That amazing game. What was he, 37-43 or something, 37-42. He led that team to a comeback against the Colts on prime time. And people were talking about him like he was in that MVP conversation. Now, it doesn't count because the back half of his year was not great. He got injured. He, in fact, did not finish in the top 3 in the MVP conversation, but it was closer than people think. I really do want to make that clear, but at the same time, I was wrong. I will take that loss. I was definitely wrong about that, but it's kind of like the what if situation, right? Because really, he blew out the Chargers, the Ravens. They really had those like close games, and then they never had that big blowout win. And then the Chargers came to town and the Ravens blew them out. And then at that point, Justin Herbert was in the MVP conversation and people were talking about Justin Herbert as his MVP candidate. The Ravens come in, they just annihilate the Chargers, and you never really heard Herbert in the MVP conversation again. Jackson's name kept catapulting up, and then I think the Bengals game was really what kind of, I think, sent that MVP campaign spiraling for him, unfortunately. So I'm 0 for 1 here. I'll take that loss, 0 for 1. My second bold prediction was that the Ravens would have 2 1,000-yard wide receivers, and I will take my victory. I will take it. I am one of two here, and this one I'm really impressed with, honestly. Like when I put this out, I was thinking about which ones were more realistic to happen versus weren't realistic or weren't as realistic, I'd say. This was towards the bottom. I was thinking, like, I don't really see a way how they could have 2 1,000-yard wide receivers unless their passing offense just becomes super pass heavy. Lo and behold, now it didn't become pass heavy the way that I think people wanted it to in terms of the reason why it became that way, because of injuries ultimately. But the Ravens have Mark Andrews become a 1,000-yard receiver, Marquise Brown become a 1,000-yard receiver. And I was right. I was right. And I think that a lot of this did come down to just the pure shift in the offensive play calling and the offensive personnel. I mean, the shift came because of the personnel, I feel like. But again, when you talked about the Ravens from what they did in 2019 and 2020, you never thought of them as a team that could have 2 1,000-yard receivers, regardless of how talented the guys were. You maybe say, all right, well, yeah, they could have a one 1,000-yard guy and one like 700-yard guy, but they're just going to run the ball too much. They're not going to have as many opportunities. So the Ravens, who finished in 2019 and 2020 with the least amount of pass attempts in the NFL, finished 9th in 2021, and that allowed guys like Mark Andrews, Marquise Brown to get more targets and just beat defenses more. And plus, they're two very skilled players, two very talented players. So I'm 1 for 2 here. I got the 2 1,000-yard receiver prediction. Now this one's going to be embarrassing. All right, here we go. Baltimore will make just one offensive line change throughout all of the 2021 season. This might have been my worst one. The Ravens, they had to make an offensive line change literally midway through the first game against the Raiders when Tyree Phillips went out and he went on IR. He got carted off the field. Obviously, you talk about Ronnie Stanley, Alejandro Villanueva, Patrick McCary having to come in and out. Kevin Zeitler was pretty consistent. Bradley Bozeman, same thing. Left guard, you had guys kind of going in and out. You had Ben Powers and Ben Cleveland played some games, and obviously Phillips started there in week 1. Let's just say there were a lot more offensive line changes than just one. This was a really, really bad one. I will take this loss. I am 1 for 3 here. And it's crazy because in 2020, it really was the same thing. There were so many different offensive line combinations. And again, as I put in this article, I said injuries are very hard to predict and can happen at any point. And also they had poor play and that also tried their hand a couple of times. So they were trying to find combinations. So yeah, I was not right on this one. 1 for 3 right here. Next, Tyus Bowser will lead the Ravens in sacks. Boom. 2 for 4. 2 for 4. This is not bad. This is 50% so far. I will for bold predictions. That this one was actually also another one that was decently bold because people looked at the Ravens pass rushing, I guess, options and said, Tyus Bowser, what are you talking about? You have Odafe Owe as a rookie, Justin Houston coming in, Calais Campbell on the interior, and Tyus Bowser led this team with 7 sacks. The next closest was Odafe Owe with 5, Justin Houston with 4.5, then Just Matabike with 2, Josh Bynes with 2, and then the list continues on and on. Calais Campbell only had 1.5, just for any of the people keeping track out there. But yeah, this was one that, again, just like the 2 1,000-yard receivers, I was like, it'll probably be Justin Houston or maybe Odafe Owe surprises some people. Tyus Bowser was a player who was going to take on we knew he was going to take on a big role, or at least a bigger one than we had seen from him over the first couple of years in this league. But the way that he flourished as a pass rusher, he was probably Baltimore's most consistent defensive player throughout the entire season last year. And that's saying something. And it's really unfortunate that he tore his Achilles in week 18. We're going to have to, again, wait to see when he's back on the field. But Tyus Bowser did lead this team in sacks in 2021. So I will take that win. 2 for 4 right here. Let's move on to the next one. Patrick Queen finishes in the top 5 of the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. This one, not as good as the Tyus Bowser one. This did not happen. Patrick Queen's season was not what many anticipated, especially in the early part of the year. Missed tackles, missed assignments, just looked lost and confused in the field a lot. Now, in the second half of the year, I want to give him a lot of credit because he ended up turning his season, I think, around. Now, it ends up when you talk about the not so great first half versus I think the pretty good second half, it kind of is a wash in terms of, well, I think he played okay. But as we kind of talked about in the first segment, I think this is a big year 3 for him expectation wise. But Patrick Queen is a player that didn't start a ton at LSU, was on a really great defense and contributed to that a ton. But I think with him in particular, it's different for every NFL player, right? Some players just they're able to go on the field and it translates right away. For other players, it doesn't. And I'm not knocking one or the other, right? So I think that for Queen, this is a big year for him, but certainly did not finish in the top 5 of the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. It honestly looked just the way he played in the preseason, sniffing out screens, tackling, sacks. I mean, everything seemed to be going so great for him in the preseason. He actually played decently well in week 1 against the Raiders in Las Vegas. And then the first half of the year just kind of all came crashing down. Second half, again, a bit better. But again, yeah, that one not great. So 2 for 5 here for me. Then we'll go 2 for 6 because I said Deshaun Elliott leads Baltimore in interceptions. Now, this one wasn't actually as far off as people think. Now, Elliott only had 1 interception in 2021, right? So that obviously was not enough. But the leader in interceptions was Anthony Averett with 3. Then Chuck Clark had 2. Then Deshaun Elliott was tied for 3rd with 1, with players like Tavon Young, Marlon Humphrey, and Geno Stone. The Ravens were not a very high interception team at all. They were actually tied for 26 in the NFL with 9 total. So it just wasn't a good interception year from them. But the crazy part to me, honestly, is that Deshaun Elliott has not been more of a ball hawk in his career. Now, look, injuries have played a big part in this, right? He's missed 2 full seasons, or not 2 full seasons, but he's had season-ending injuries. And I guess when adding the games up, it almost amounts to 2 full seasons. But he's a player that has missed a lot of time due to injuries. Now, he's a player that had 9 interceptions in college, 6 in his final year at Texas. But the only interception he's had in his career was that one against the Chargers. So maybe, again, a fresh start for him in Detroit. Hopefully a clean bill of health. He'll be able to play and have a really good year for Detroit and then hit the free agent market again in 2023 and cash out because I think he deserves it. He's a very hard worker. But Elliott did not lead the team in interceptions in 2021. But again, not that far off because the Ravens were not a great interception team in 2021. So I was only really 2 interceptions away from actually having that as a success for me. So yeah, we're 2 for 6, and then 2 for 7 is the Ravens will win the Super Bowl in 2021, 2022. Season didn't go as planned. In fact, they didn't even get the chance to win because they didn't even make the playoffs. 8-9, the first time since 2017. This team did not make the playoffs. So all in all, I mean, a disappointing year overall. 2 for 7 on my bold predictions. Although I will say I'm impressed with the 2 that I got right. The 1,000-yard receiver, or the 2 1,000-yard receivers, and Tyus Bowser leading the league in sacks, or leading the team in sacks, not the league. I'm impressed with what I did there. So again, not the greatest percentage at 2 for 7, but I will still take the ones that I got. I will hold those proudly, and I will say that I predicted those before the 2021 season began. So that concludes the roast of me. You can put in the comments on YouTube and the premiere thing. Why would you say that? Why would you predict that? That no way that was happening. But at the same time, I had a couple of good gems in there. So not a completely lost bold predictions for the 2021 season from me. But we'll head into our final break here on Locked On Ravens. Still a ton to talk about. We'll continue with our OTA talk in the final segment, talking about some quotes the players and coaches had from the second day of open practice to the media at OTA. So be sure to stay tuned. Again, still a ton to talk about here on Locked On Ravens. So don't go anywhere. But first, I do want to tell you a bit about Rock Auto. And this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. We're under from pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning, and sometimes you have to wait, and the person has to order the parts on their computer, and they can really only choose the brand their warehouse happens to carry. Now you have to use access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. And why you should choose Rock Auto is because you can save a lot of time and money. They're a family business, so they serve do-it-yourselfers. They've been doing it for over 20 years. Their prices are super, super low. And you can explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Just right Locked On. And they're here. How'd you hear about us, box? They know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts of car will ever need. rockauto.com. We're back here. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher, your host, still here with you. Thank you again for making Locked On Ravens your first listen today. Again, be sure to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, like this video, and also in audio form. Be sure to follow us anywhere you get your favorite podcast and make your second listen Locked On NFL. Is host them around our network, go around the network and talk about the biggest stories throughout the league. But let's now talk about some quotes from OTAs here. Again, this was the second session that was open to the media, multiple players, multiple coaches speaking. And one of the coaches who had a couple of really nice quotes was Greg Roman. And Roman talked about Nick Boyle and said that he's a completely new guy this year. He looks like a completely new guy this year. And it's unbelievable what he's done and has complimented the hard work that Boyle has put in. And we know how Boyle's 2021 season went. We know how the end of his 2020 season went. Suffered that gruesome injury against the New England Patriots in that monsoon game, right, where the rain was coming down and it seemed like the skies parted for Baltimore's final drive, and then they stopped when New England had the ball. So conspiracies, right? But no. So Boyle suffered that injury and really, I don't think was the same player in 2021. Wasn't able to come back at the beginning of the season. Came back for a little bit, but then had to kind of miss some more time after that. So it was a very just almost a lost year for him. But again, with all the things that have been said about him, it feels like he's a player that is back now. And we have to wait till we see him on the field, obviously. But from what has been said and from what Greg Roman said here, it feels like Boyle's back. And that's such a huge part of this offense and for what they do with running the football, hopefully getting back to that a little bit more in 2022. He's a huge part of that. He's the best blocking tight end on this team when he's fully healthy. He's someone who has evolved his game as a pass catcher. So I'm really glad to hear that Boyle is doing well and just, looking like a completely new guy. I'm excited to see what that looks like, honestly. And I'm excited to see Boyle back on the field, hopefully at full strength. But Roman also said that when Lamar Jackson returns, he'll be introduced to some new offensive material. And Roman said he already knows about 80% of it, but also said 20% will be new. So a couple things here, obviously. The whole Lamar Jackson OTAs thing is something that has been talked about a lot. And by a lot, I mean a lot. So I'm not going to really dive into that part again. It'd be awesome if it was there, but it's voluntary. So I'm not going to, I'm going to respect that decision. And that's his decision. They're voluntary. But again, any rep you can get is great. And so for any player who's learning this offense or learning this defense or whatever, there's going to be some new stuff, it feels like, this year. And I think that is a good thing. It's a good thing that new stuff is being implemented for sure. So, when Lamar Jackson gets back, he'll start to learn that, start to catch up and be able to become familiar with that. But maybe, again, this is the vault we're starting to see here. Maybe that vault's creaking open a little bit and we'll start to see a little bit at the beginning of the year. Maybe it opens up a little bit more at the end of the year. I'm hoping that we can see a little bit of that as the season starts and as the season goes on as well. But also, when you have, also looking at something that Mike Macdonald said, the defensive coordinator talking, and he talked about Patrick Queen and said that he's going to have a big time role in the defense and he knows it. It's a big year for him, and it absolutely is. We've talked about this now, all three segments, right? Patrick Queen being mentioned, all three segments here. Huge year for Patrick Queen for sure. I just think that with how he's performed over the first couple of seasons, I think some people expected more for sure, but I also think he's shown flashes that he showed at LSU that were the reasons why the Ravens made him a first-round pick in 2020, and I am completely on board with him just breaking out for real this year, right? And having this true breakout season in a defense that I think might better suit his skills. I mean, he was ecstatic when Mike Macdonald came back. And I think that this defense will be a little different, obviously, with Macdonald at the helm than what we saw in 2021 with the Don Martindale defense. And with guys healthy, too, you can play off of those guys. So I think for Queen, that'll be a really, really big thing for him for sure. And also, Mike Macdonald talked about how it's too early to say where guys like Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, Chuck Clark will play, and it could change week to week, and said that, quote, our goal is to find the best 11 guys in any given situation, end quote. And so, yeah, this defense is not going to play base a ton, and they never have really done that over the course of the past couple of seasons. They love the versatility. You can see 3 safety looks. You can see 60 Bs. You can see other guys crowding the line at the line of scrimmage. The 3 safety looks with Chuck Clark as a dime linebacker. Maybe you see 1 inside linebacker, no inside linebackers, right? There are so many things that this defense can do because a lot of the players can play multiple positions And that's something the Ravens have valued for a very, very, very long time. So it doesn't shock me to hear that McDonald isn't really sure yet, because one, there's still a ton of time to figure it out. Because they don't know stuff in June doesn't mean they're not going to know it in September. And it'll be a learning game throughout the entire season. It'll vary week to week. And I think it will, as McDonald said, and that'll be something that I think is very important as well. But something else that was really great was Marcus Williams, friend of the show. Marcus Williams actually said that he's already latched on to Chuck Clark because he's been a great leader, and he's helping him learn the defense. And this is great. Again, we talked about Chuck Clark showing up to OTAs, and the fact that with everything going on with him, the rumors surrounding him, with whether his unhappiness with the contract is true or with the players at his position is true, Chuck Clark has showed up. He's been a leader. Look, I am on the team of keep Chuck Clark in Baltimore. I think he is an asset to this defense. Is he the best safety on the roster? No. Is he the best safety in the league? No. But again, if the Ravens have to trade him because it's something that Clark wants, they're not going to have much of a choice, it feels like, because over the course of the past couple of seasons, we have seen them work with players to get them the situations that they like, such as Hayden Hurst and Orlando Brown Jr. and Marquise Brown. So I don't think that'd be different with Clark. So if this is a contract thing, if this is a, hey, I don't really understand what my role is going to be here, I want a bigger one elsewhere. If, again, none of this has been confirmed. It's just been like rumors that have been out there. But if that is the case, Baltimore, I don't think will have a choice. And then you have to look. Well, again, they will have a choice, but I feel like they will help Clark get to a situation that he wants to get to. So I'm all aboard the keep Chuck Clark train. I think that he is an asset. I think that him and these three safety looks, I want to see those three safety looks for sure. And again, you have a player like Kyle Hamilton, a player like Marcus Williams, a player like Chuck Clark, three very different skill sets that have some similarities, and they play very well off of each other. So I think that if you can have all three of those guys on the field, it's a great thing. We know what Chuck Clark does for this defense from a leadership perspective with the blue dot and setting people up. So at the end of the day, I think that Clark is a player that still has a ton of value in this defense. One of the glue guys for sure, not the flashiest player, but comes in, gets his job done, had a great year in 2021, all things considered. And I think that he's a player that if the Ravens can keep him around, they should absolutely, absolutely do so for sure. But that's all I have for you today here on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. When we get back in tomorrow, I'll be rounding out the week with more Ravens talk, of course. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you tomorrow.